Hi, this is Milk. I'm a medical doctor from Uganda. I moved to Germany about a year ago. I learned the German language and reached fluency within 6 months. I'm preparing myself for the medical licensing exam. Within this 1 year period of being here, I have discovered, tried, and used a variety of methods that have helped me quickly learn the German language. So let me give you a realistic overview of how you can 10x your learning of German, just like how I did from zero experience with the language to reaching fluency just within 6 months. At the end of the video, I'm going to give you effective tips that will definitely help you. Well, before we even dive into the tips, the reason why you're learning the language is very important. For me, it was as simple as knowing that I want to practice medicine in German within a period of 1 year. So, simple as it might sound, yes, you need to have a proper reason as to why you're learning the language. So, in case you didn't know, the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, also known as the CEFR, is a set of guidelines used to describe and categorize achievements of learners of foreign languages into 6 levels, with A1 being the most basic beginner level and C2 being the level of the people who are native speakers. So with no prior exposure to the language, I really had to come up with a smart strategy for me to be able to learn this German language very effectively. And for me, that was to actually categorize my learning, or rather dividing my learning into 2 parts. One was the input and the other was the output. The input basically involving reading and hearing. Reading is also called lesen and hearing is called hören. And the output basically entailed speaking and writing. It is important to note that for you to be able to be effective at learning any language, you need to have a combination of these 4 things. For A1 and A2, well, I combined them because for me they were the foundation upon which the rest of the language was going to be built upon. After trying all sorts of methods at this level, I mean from podcasts to YouTube channels to apps, I actually realized that it's important at this level for me to settle for only 2 sources. Some people actually recommend 1 source, but for me why 2 sources was that in case I take on more than 1 source, it was going to be quite overwhelming for my brain. It's important at this level to take in small bits of the language, like small bites, kind of to tease your brain and invite it into this whole new world of learning a new language, but also not taking a lot of information to kind of overwhelm the brain and get it laid back, because scientifically speaking, the brain usually just kind of slides into freezing mode in case it is overwhelmed. So what I did at A1 and A2 level is I had, of course, 2 sources like I mentioned above. Source number 1 was I enrolled into language school, which I would highly, of course, recommend. You get learning material, but also you get to be instructed by people who are very experienced and have been teaching learners for quite a long time. The disadvantage is it is kind of not very flexible with various people, especially if you're somebody who is working. You have to find time to show up at the language school and learn. The second source is that I discovered this very wonderful channel called Learn German for Beginners. This channel did miracles for me. This YouTube channel had very wonderful videos from A1 to A2, B1 and B2, and these are very well done. They are short videos of about 10 minutes each with very, very easy instruction that helped me. I dedicated 2 more hours of personal reading every day from this particular YouTube channel. By the end of the 2 months, for me, the foundation was set very well. I understood the basics of the language from the nominative, accusative, and dative. For the output aspect of A1 and A2, you have to summon enough strength that has to surpass feeling a bit ashamed of sounding wrong. What I recommend at this level is just find somebody with whom you can speak and practicing out those statements. Even simple phrases like Ich bin Mel, ich bin 29 Jahre alt, ich komme aus Uganda, ich bin Arzt. Things like these, simple statements like that, try to make sure that you're expressing yourself in them. You can get a practicing partner, maybe at the language school of instruction. And that's also another advantage of going to language school, because then you get to find people with whom you can practice the language. At this level, I also recommend that at the end of A1 and A2, you challenge yourself to something. There is a very wonderful movie out there done by Deutsche Welle called Nico's Wege. It is done purely for A1 and A2 and it is very understandable. You can check it out. By the way, for those of you who use Anki to do the reading, there is an Anki deck online on Nico's Wege for A1 and A2 and I think B1. All those 3 are cards which are from this movie. So you can actually download it for free and then install it within your Anki app and revise those cards. At this point for me, I was ready to move to B1. At this level, of course, the grammar was getting tougher and the vocabulary was also growing large. It is just very, very usual and normal at this point for you to feel overwhelmed. So what I personally did at this level is, of course, I kept the language school school, Learn German for Beginners, and then I added on 2 more sources, Kurswege in the Ankidex, and this other wonderful channel called Easy German. What I did is I just doubled down, and of course I recommend the same. I was doing 2 hours in A1 and A2. I just doubled down. I added 2 more hours into a day. So 6 hours of school being instructed, and then 4 more hours doing personal reading from all these 4 sources. This really worked the magic, because at the end of B1, I could really feel comfortable with the language. The joy was finally there. I could start to grasp things. I could start to hold conversations. I could be able to understand things which people are saying. In case you're not yet in German, there are some online sources which I'm going to share at the end of the video, which you can use to get some practicing partners. So at this point in time, after 4 months of very intensive learning and reading, the German language was now making sense. It was very exciting, because now the reading was making sense. Even the hearing was making sense. I dropped off Kurswege and Learn German for Beginners, because at this point they were quite easier and boring for me. I kept language school, so I kept going to language school. It's like going bare knuckles with the language. What I did is I took off the gloves and went very hard on the language. I was very aggressive with the speaking. Every time I meet somebody, even if they attempt to speak English, I rather drive them into the German conversation, because for me, yes, it was very important that I cracked this code. I cracked this German language within 6 months. After 5 full months of intensive learning, I was finally able to move to C1. It is very unlikely that you will need a level of C1 unless if you are intending to study in German or work in a specific profession which needs the German language. Like, for example, I'm a doctor, I need to study C1. At C1 level, you are able to do quite a lot with the language. You are able to express yourself very freely. You are able to communicate. You are able to understand a number of things. You no longer feel as foreign within the country, and you're no longer as scared. It just gives you a certain freedom for you to express yourself. It's like a certain weight has gone off your shoulders. Here I was consuming more harder materials. What I did is I just translated everything. I changed my phone and put it in German. Everything I was watching, even the movies I was watching, I translated all of them into German. So for me currently, even the other things I've taken up is to read a lot of literature in Germany. There is this wonderful book written by Trevor Noah, Born a Crime. I think you guys know about it. If you don't know, Trevor Noah is a South African comedian who was hosting the Daily Show in the USA. I'm reading the German version of the book, and it has paid off the results. When you just go hard with the steps I've shared above, you can surely do it. Within 6 months, you can be very comfortable in expressing yourself within the language. Now, like I promised you earlier, there are some sources I had promised you that you can be able to use to learn the language. For those of you who are not in Germany, to find speaking partners, apps like HelloTalkie, Tandem, iTalki. These are very, very useful sources that can help you in your learning of the German language. I really appreciate that you stuck around until this time around. I hope I've given you some value. In case I have, please consider subscribing to the channel. Then, of course, like the video, and I'll be excited if you left a comment or any question specifically that is addressed learning the German language. If you are a doctor or you know one, you might want to check out this video where I talk about how to apply for the German medical licensing exam. And until the next one, bye and peace.